Okay, hello everyone. Joined by Jose right now in Michigan, and a lot of people have been asking me about squatting, and it really takes a lot of different things. There's different scenarios, but were you a landlord, or how did you have to deal with this situation? What happened?
Yes, I'm a landlord, and we were renting to a tenant, and apparently she decided that she was going to rent a room to somebody else without us knowing. And at that point, when we went to the eviction process, because she hadn't paid her rent, we went through the process of evicting her, only to find out that somebody else was living there, and that we had to go through the same process all over again to evict this person, even though they were not on the lease. They were considered squatters.
Wow. So even though someone legally nowhere in writing was that person allowed to be on that property, they still had rights apparently.
They still had rights to be able to stay there until I evicted them.
For the common person, that really doesn't make sense, but a lot of stuff doesn't make sense.
Well, exactly. And that didn't make sense to us either, because we thought once we did the eviction process, we had figured that he would just move out with them. And obviously, he knew the law and how to play that system. So he stayed there another 30 days as we had to evict him and unfortunately his family. But in his case, he thought he was paying rent to her and it was all good.
Okay. There's lots of laws, and like does it make it tough for landlords? It kind of discourages people because you hear stories like this and you're like, oh my, it's not all fun and games being a landlord.
Yeah, and it's not. We fortunately have had been doing this. We've been doing this for about 15 years, and that was the first case in those 15 years that we run across this. So I've talked to lots of people, and they want to start up a business and be a landlord, and they get discouraged by that. And I'm like, if we've been doing this for 15 years, that's the only time that's happened to us. Not that we haven't had to evict people, but that's again our only second time that we've done that. And
Okay.
so it's not that bad. The
Yeah.
laws are getting harder and more towards the squatters, if you will, or the tenants, because they have a lot of rights, and which is fine, so long as we both know the law and do it by the law. Because I didn't want to go in there and say you got to leave, and obviously he had rights to stay there, and and he knew that, so he stayed there another 30 days without paying rent.
For example, let's say you have a property, and I don't know, if I just crawl through a window and start living there, would I have rights? I wonder.
Um, I believe I'd have to look that up, but I believe that you would have to evict them, even though they walk through the window. And I would think that first I would try going through the law to see if, because they had broke in, that they'd be trespassing. Which in fact
Yeah.
we tried that with these people, and they had not they didn't break in. They thought they had a lease with this lady, and they were renting a room. And to them it protected them. Now had they and even we had the police out there, and they says they didn't break any laws, they're not trespassing.
Huh.
They think that they have rights to this house because they were renting from this person.
So maybe places like New York, San Francisco, maybe that's the extreme then. You probably saw the case in New York where I think the landlord got arrested because they were trying to get the person out. So that might be the extreme. That doesn't happen all often, I would
Correct.
say.
And I haven't seen that happen here. I did see a case out in California, and actually I think it's a suburb where LeBron James lives, and somebody took over a house there, and they have squatting rights, which is just amazing. I would think that if you do break in, I don't know how you can have those rights, but again, like you said, New York, California, they're, I think, a little bit more extreme, and I hope we don't get that way here in Michigan.
What do you think? The governor of Florida yesterday, he passed new legislation or signed it, I believe, into law that protects landlords more against that. Is that a step in the right direction?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because we are, as landlords, losing more and more of our rights to our properties. And, and I get it. They live there, they pay rent, and we do, us as landlords, we give them the benefit of the doubt. we do let them, let us know what's going on so we can work with them. I don't like to evict people, and I will work with our tenants. We've had a good track record with our tenants. Our average is about 7 years per tenant, which is great. I don't want to be putting a new tenant in every year because they can't pay their rent, or, because our rent's too high. We do come within a little bit lower than the marketplace.
The last question I want to ask, I think a lot of people assume that landlords like yourself, you're millionaires or billionaires, and you own all of these properties everywhere. But through the years in the different states I've lived in, landlords are just average people. They're not millionaires. I mean, is that what you see as well? I mean, you're not a billionaire, I'm assuming.
Absolutely not. If I was, I wouldn't be doing this. Yeah, we're not millionaires or billionaires, but we do have properties that we have to maintain so that they can have a nice, safe house. I have very good um, what you call it, relationships with the city inspectors here in Bay City and in the townships and that. And so I make sure that when we do our homes, they're nice enough for my wife and I to live in.
Wow.
So when somebody comes in, it's a nice home. And somebody gave me that nugget when I first started. Just make it nice enough for you to live in, and that's why we do it. And so when we get tenants in, they see that, and they take care of the house better.
Yeah, and you're an example of who's doing it right. It's always the bad people who get the publicity. It's not the good landlords or the good people like yourself. The same thing with any profession. The bad ones get the publicity, and that's also I wanted to talk to you to show that landlords are just average people, trying to make a little money or get their. They're not multi-billion-dollar corporations. Most landlords are just average people.
Correct. And in my case, when I purchased the homes, my wife and I purchased the homes. At that time, I did not have a pension of any sorts. So these were working as my pension. So when I retired, I had the houses to help towards our expenses. So
Yeah,
yes, we're not. I mean, this is basically um, these are my pension compared
yeah,
to
and you're
other
helping
people.
also because Michigan has a housing issue, but this will be the last question, I promise. Michigan has a housing shortage, but it's people like you willing to invest in properties. I think you're helping out people with that housing shortage because you're providing housing.
Yes, and we're constantly on the lookout for new properties to purchase and to because there are people that are struggling. That if we can help them out, put them in a home, then and I always push them if they can to buy a home because it's much easier to buy a home and cheaper to buy a home than it is to rent. So I always encourage our tenants if they can and if we can help them to purchase their own home. It's much cheaper than renting.
Wow, so you're about bettering basically society,
Oh,
really.
absolutely, absolutely. So
Okay. Well, I just wanted to ask those couple things and get some misconceptions about landlords that you're not flying around in a private jet everywhere. So,
no, no, that's if that's the case, I wouldn't be buying my plane ticket for tomorrow. So
exactly. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time.